I might be the only one, but there have been a handful of times over the years where I thought I had found the perfect vendor, the perfect, person to hire that, was running a business or a service or a company to come in and help me with some of the things that I needed solved in my business. And everything was going great. I was sure it was a great fit. And then either early on or somewhere in the project, everything just went to hell. Like, bankruptcies, no delivery, no communication, charged me money and never delivered things. Again, I could be the only one, but if you've ever struggled with really finding the right vendors and finding a process that will help you hire people that are really a great fit for you, I'm excited because today I'm going to share with you 3 lessons I learned from hiring the wrong vendors. So we'll dive right into it. One of my friends, Amanda, reminded me today when I was talking to her. She said that a mutual friend of ours, Alex Charfin, says that it's very common for entrepreneurs to be taken advantage of. And when she said that, I've heard Alex said that before, but it reminded me, and I was like, oh yeah, that's very normal. And it's unfortunately it's true. But there's actually a way and a process that we can put in place. And there's some lessons I've learned that I'm going to share with you today that will help you to minimize those risks and those errors that happen. Over the past year, there's been a handful of lessons that have come up that I'm going to share. And I've gone through these situations multiple times, but I feel like in the last year, I've really just kind of shifted my mindset and focus and started to ask, why did this mistake happen? And what kind of process and protection and support can I put in place for myself so it doesn't happen again? Instead of saying, oh, that's a terrible vendor, or they totally screwed up, or I can't believe somebody screwed me again. The reason that I want to shift my mindset, and I chose to do that, is because if I'm only blaming the vendor, then I'm going to be a victim and I can't solve the problem, and it's going to happen over and over. If I shift my perspective and say, what can I learn from this? Or where did I potentially make a mistake? Or where is the process not as strong as it could be? Then I can take on the responsibility and ask myself, what can I do better? What can change and improve? And it brings everything back into my control, a lot into my control, and in our process control in a healthy way. Because there's a lot of things in business that we do need to have good controls and good processes on. And so the 3 lessons I kind of want to dive into today are around hiring the wrong vendors in different scenarios. Sometimes there's vendors we hire that are just not good businesses, not being ethical. And those are things that happen. Sometimes we hire vendors for ourselves that are not aligned with us. And that's just a misalignment. There's nothing unethical going on, but we partner with the wrong person. And then other times, there's other crazy things that happen. But in the last year or so, I went through the process of writing a full-length book, one of the longest book I've ever written. I have some other kind of random stuff out there that isn't worth looking up, to be honest, in my opinion. But this book, I really put a lot of time into. It took me about a year to write, and I got a referral from somebody and said, here's an awesome publisher that will take great care of you. They're great for entrepreneurs. And so since the person that referred them to me is somebody I super trust, I've done work with, I have a deep relationship with them, I made the mistake of just making the assumption that if they referred somebody to me, then it'd be a great fit and I didn't need to worry about anything else. So what I didn't do, which I would recommend that you don't make these mistakes. The mistakes I made in this first example is I didn't check any references at all. Like I think that sometimes references are overweighted, but I also think that taking a look at somebody's reference work or talking to 1 or 2 people or diving a little bit deeper is generally a good practice. So you have some comfort level of what you should expect from a deliverable. And I basically did no checking, no research, no references or anything, which would have saved me some of this headache that happened. The next thing that happened is I didn't edit the contract that I signed to match my preferences. And anytime that we blindly signed an agreement, we are risking, especially if it's an immature, underdeveloped vendor or company, we risk running into a bunch of complications or having lack of clarity on deliverables. So I didn't edit the contract. And we had a verbal conversation, which was great, which I have a recording of somewhere, but it's not really going to hold up when we're looking at, hey, this is the agreement we made and what's going wrong here. So I didn't edit the contract. And in the end, I signed on. It was a little bit of a rough start, and I tend to blame myself when there's a rough start and say, oh, maybe I didn't do something right, which is true. I could have done better with references and checking the contract and actually getting a rough schedule and game plan written out before I signed. So I tend to blame myself in the beginning when things are rough. But in the end, what happened with this is my publisher went bankrupt. My book was taken offline. We're in the middle of putting it back online and relaunching it and self-publishing like we help all of our clients do. And it ended up just being a big mess because I didn't take simple precautions of checking references or work or getting, looking at the contract and really editing and making it clear and getting an even clearer kind of statement of work. And those are tedious steps that kind of go against the grain of my normal natural behavior of like, let's dive in, let's get go. I just want results. Let's dive in. I think that's a very normal entrepreneurial thing to do, is we just want to dive in. But when we do that, we can shoot ourselves in the foot sometimes, like I did. The one benefit that came out of this experience for me is I intentionally decided to use a publisher instead of self-publishing like we help all our clients do, so that I could test it out and see if it was something I would recommend other clients or something we would white label. And fortunately, I'm the one that paid, for my learning and not our clients, which is what we always try to do here at BME. So that was the really positive thing that came out of it, is that I didn't risk client time or money. And ended up, there was some big frustration points. I had to put more time and money than expected. I didn't get the results I wanted. It was just a messy end to the relationship from a business standpoint. But the good news is I learned a lot and I got a lot of experience. The good news is, and I want to say clearly too, I've gone bankrupt in years past with the first company that I started. And going bankrupt doesn't make you a bad person. It just means that there wasn't health inside your business. And so I definitely wish my publisher the best. And I'm sure that in the future they will find success and find a good path. But it was a really painful, difficult experience that I'd like to have you avoid. That's the first lesson. The second lesson is I hired somebody for financial strategy, because as your business grows, I believe, and in my experience, it's incredibly foolish to do your own taxes, do all your own bookkeeping, do all your financial, planning, investment planning, and strategy, for a few reasons. One, odds are it's probably not your area of expertise, which means you're going to make mistakes that cost you significantly in the future. And just as important, if you are, fairly financially intelligent, it takes a lot of time for you to learn and build your own strategy. And managing, a lot of revenue, a lot of money and things as you're trying to build assets and build a company and build, invest for retirement, can become maybe not a full-time job, but it takes a lot of focus and time. And so you definitely should have, financial experts like a CPA involved without question. I don't care what size your business is. It never costs you any money to have a CPA do your taxes and give you input, because I did business without one before, and talk about a giant mess, and took me years to clear up with the IRS. It's taken me forever to solve that. So you do want to have people involved for financial strategy. But in this case, I brought somebody in for, some financial planning and strategy, kind of long-term things, not my regular CPA and my bookkeeping company, who takes amazing care of us, but somebody a little bit farther down the road for us with like retirement and passive income focus. And with this deal, as I went through the process, it was a little bit different. This vendor was incredibly integrous, ethical. And when I went through about a third of the process, I reached out and I said, you know what, I really don't feel like this is aligned with how I do business, the risk tolerance. There's always risk tolerance when you're talking about financial investment. I said, doesn't align with, something I'm comfortable with. And so I don't think I want to proceed. And they instantly said, you know what, no problem. We're fully refunding you. It's totally not a big deal. That's why we take this process. And so we really enjoyed working with you. We wish you the best. And here's all your money back. So that was an example where all I lost was a little bit of time. And it wasn't a significant amount of time. Fortunately, we were only, probably 10 hours into the process, which is not nothing, but it wasn't, months of my life. And I realized the lesson I learned here is I could have continued to dig and get more details up front, because there wasn't clarity on some of the strategies. There wasn't clarity on some of the deliverables. And so it just wasn't I could have probably learned more up front instead of rushing into it and thinking, you know what, this feels good enough, let's go. And that's something I would encourage you to do, is take the time to be comfortable. Don't go so slow that you don't take action and you miss opportunities. That's not the point. But balance that with saying, does this feel aligned? Am I super clear on the schedule? Do I know what the deliverables are? And does this match, my risk tolerance for this project, for a financial plan, whatever it might be? Because there's always inherent risk with anything new that we try. But again, that was some mistakes and how I hired this vendor to help me, but it was awesome because they were super ethical. They were awesome to communicate with. Instantaneously, they said, totally understand. If there's anything we can improve, we want to know, but we have no issue just fully refunding you. And it ended up being a great wrap up to the experience, even though I kind of stumbled or made some mistakes in the beginning. The third lesson that I learned, is to, in the beginning, before I even explore a vendor or even talk to somebody, is to list out the requirements and review those with the vendors. And in addition, because one of my strengths can be one of my weaknesses sometimes too, I'm super optimistic. I believe in people. I always want to, say, oh, this is gonna work out great. I see the best in you. I've learned to filter vendors through my team. And I may do an initial meeting, but then they'll have to meet with my general manager or my CFO or project manager or somebody else. And I'll say, hey, how do you feel about this? Because your job is to protect me from me and not let me rush into something too fast. So if you have a team or even a spouse or a partner, it's great to have them be part of the filtering process, because that's what will help you uncover your blind spots. It always helps me uncover my blind spots. And I've taken away a lot of learning from these three different experiences that I had, or these two experiences and kind of the lessons. And I've had multiple bad experiences in years past, but this year I was glad because I had some rough experiences, but I felt like I really stepped forward and took ownership of how I was going to, be more effective in the future. So I'd encourage you to do the same. Ask yourself, what went wrong in the past, and how can I take responsibility for the things that I can take responsibility for, so that I can have a more positive experience with the vendors that I bring in. I'm hoping that's useful for you. If you've had any lessons learned, this is never about naming and shaming people. We don't do that around here. I don't do that. I won't tolerate that. But I would love just to hear anonymously, like, what lessons have you learned with vendors that haven't gone well? Drop those in the comments down below. I always like learning for those. It'll be valuable for everybody else that watches this. And if you need any help with anything on this front, I have resources and things that, even if it's not a service we provide, I can point you to the right people. You can reach out to us at businessmarketingengine.com. And I look forward to seeing you on tomorrow's show.